Time we want to come back to the Carolinas because we do have a big story that a lot of folks are talking about right now. We're seeing a lot of chatter online. I'm getting messages from people who I have contacts with in the community regarding, animal welfare. But there's this video that has been circulating now, and it shows essentially a possum being burned to death. And it's really sparking a lot of outrage from folks in the community, and we've learned after doing some digging that authorities are aware of this now, and they're starting to get involved in potentially an investigation, potentially some charges. So we want to bring in our Miles Harris, who is working on this story for us today. So Miles, thanks for joining us here in the Live Impact News studio.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for having me. Obviously, a very, very concerning incident that we were talking about with the story today, and obviously this has been something that we've been kind of following up with ever since we caught wind of this story or video on Facebook from a couple of days ago, or from earlier, I think this morning and last night.
Last night.
But we have been able to at least talk to a couple of officials. We do know, like you said, that there are multiple agencies looking at this incident, looking at this video, trying to kind of piece some things together. As far as the details in regards to officials and investigators from there, we just know that they are looking at this case. They are looking at this being possible felony charges or an incident in this because of the animal cruelty in regards to this. You really can't own possums in North Carolina and in Charlotte specifically. So this definitely looks like an animal cruelty case, a felony animal cruelty case that the investigators are looking at. And we also got a chance to really hear from some wildlife experts as well, and kind of diving into just kind of more of the specifics and the importance of this incident, and a reminder from an education standpoint on really how to handle wildlife, whether we see them in our backyard or in our front yard or in our neighborhood, and really just the benefits of having, whether they're possums or any other types of forms of wildlife as well. And so hearing from that perspective, I kind of learned a little bit about that as well. And so we had some fun. We actually got to see some possums as well, and kind of learning really what the benefits are of them being in our community. But really just a disturbing case. I really just have to say from that, because I mean, even from the moment that we had saw the video, I didn't get a chance to watch the video in its entirety, but just a really disturbing incident, really.
Yeah, I mean, we wanted to point out that I think our staff was kind of split in a way, because in some ways we do have to watch the video to make sure that we know what we're seeing, and because we brought this to authorities, and we went to police, and specifically the Animal Care Bureau with CMPD, and you spoke with wildlife officials, and we even reached out to the FBI. But I think our staff was split in the sense of people who were like, okay, I need to watch this for the work, for the job, and some of us, including, I have to admit myself, who knew I couldn't watch this video because it would probably just bother me too much to see it. But yeah, it's interesting to see kind of the different potential legal ramifications, legal implications of the situation. I know that we reached out to FBI separately, and we received a response back with a spokesperson who was saying that they were looking into it. So we don't know for sure that FBI is going to take a role in this, but we know that it was posted online. And once something's posted online, it's potentially considering crossing state lines in some cases, and there are laws against this, specifically animal torture laws. And we talked about it earlier on the stream. There's a 2010 law that specifically forbids posting of videos of animal torture, including burning videos, that Congress passed because it's such an issue.
Which this could, again, like you said, fall in line with that incident. And so, in doing one of these stories, and I think one of the benefits of doing a story like this is learning about possums, learning about wildlife in this sense, though, too. I didn't know about the benefits in that regard, though, either. And I think that's the important part of what we're doing in highlighting this incident as a way of how do we not necessarily avoid breaking laws, but what are the benefits of having wildlife in our community, right? And whether they're possums or any other forms of wildlife, just knowing what they do, and really, again, ways of handling it. Okay, like let's say I see a possum in my backyard. I don't want it. What are the ways of avoiding it, or having it leave my backyard, or whatever the case may be? There are ways of doing it, and obviously this is not a way of doing such. And so learning about that, putting it out to our viewers to understand that and learn that part of well is definitely a thing that we're kind of focusing on with this story, but definitely just a concerning case, and obviously something that we don't see very often, unfortunately, though, either. So you mentioned the education element for possums. I mean,
I learned in part through the group that you spoke with today, so I'm looking forward to hearing more from them. But, the fact that some people, they might see possums as pests, but in a lot of ways they're actually pest control. So I don't know if she
did,
Morgan talked about that.
Yeah,
but,
I didn't know that they help when you're dealing with ticks or copperheads and things like that. I didn't know. We actually got to hold some possums today, and so didn't get a chance to know that, and I didn't know that beforehand. So knowing and learning that the benefits and knowing that they are serving a really good purpose for our community and helping whether they're neighborhoods or wherever they are. I mean, it's kind of one of those situations that's best to kind of avoid if need be. But then again, if you don't know, how do you go through the proper channels in addressing a possum or any type of form of wildlife? And so getting a chance to learn that, getting a chance to share that with our viewers and our community is definitely a big plus for us, but also kind of getting the answers as far as who is responsible for this incident, knowing what they could be facing when it comes to charges and stuff like that as well, if that's being looked at from whatever level of agencies that we're talking to. Just knowing that stuff and learning more about that is definitely one of the things that we're kind of focusing on with this.
Yeah.